The first of these two incidences was when the Shahada of Imam Hassan al-Banna. When Hassan al-Banna, he became Shaheed and he was killed in America. And one report says Sayyid Qutb, he was in hospital at that time. He was ill. When the news came through the radios and television that Hassan al-Banna had become killed, all the people in the hospital, they cheered and they were in complete jubilation at the death of this man and the shahada of this man. And the newspapers and the articles and all over the television, they're talking about the death of Sayyid Qutb, and they were all up in arms and very happy. The nurses, the doctors, everybody. And Sayyid Qutb, he realized the hatred that these people they had for Islam, that all of these people are overjoyed because of the death of this man. And also his contact with an English spy at that time called John Hersden. Now John Hersden, he was a man who had gone to the Middle East and had learnt about Islam and learnt Arabic, and he even said he had become a Muslim. And then he even married a Muslim woman. And then he went to America, and he said to Sayyid Qutb, he met Sayyid Qutb, and he said to him, your book Al-Adala Al-Ijtima'iyya, okay, this I will translate for you for $10,000. I'll give to you, I'll translate for you for $10,000. And then he continued to speak to him about Ikhwan. He had a whole dossier, a full file about the activities of Ikhwan from the beginning they were set up until the death of Imam Hassan al-Banna. They had a full dossier, all the accounts, every activity they did, all the talks, all the lectures, every single thing, he had a file of. He knew all the secrets of Ikhwan. And he started to say to him that, forget all your plans and ideas to fight the British. He was a British spy. He goes, this was useless, because if you fight the British and you get rid of them, then America will take their place. So there's no point. Look at the clever way they try to, coax his mind. And then he even said to him, look, forget this organization, this Ikhwan, they are a corrupt organization. As soon as they get to power, they're going to, cause problems. Sayyid Qutb, he realized that this man was a spy and his hatred for Ikhwan, and that's why after coming back, soon after he came back, in 1953, having been affected by the work of Imam Hassan al-Banna, he decided that he will join Ikhwan. He decided that he would join Ikhwan. And at that time, and this is very important, when the time he joined Ikhwan was the time when Jamal Abdul Nasser was fighting Ikhwan and was rounding them up and putting them in prison. SubhanAllah, right at this moment, a lot of the brothers, they are rounded up and put in prison, and every single person they shun away. I don't want anything to do with the brothers. Yeah, and they shut themselves up in their houses for 6 months, 1 month, you don't see them.
Low profile.
Yeah, they keep a low profile. And at that time, when Ikhwan were being rounded up and put in prison, at that time, Sayyid Qutb, he decides to join them. Not before, but at the time when it's most severe, in 1953. And that reminds us of an incident in the Battle of Uhud. There was a wealthy Jew called Mukhayriq. Mukhayriq was a wealthy Jew. In the Battle of Uhud, he saw Prophet Muhammad ﷺ injured. He saw the Sahaba, many of them had become shaheed. He saw the Muslims had lost the battle. And at that point, when the Muslims were losing, Mukhayriq, suddenly Aqidah entered into him, and Iman entered into his heart. And at that point, he became Muslim. He was a wealthy Jew, and he gave all his money for the sake of Islam. At the point when it was most severe, he decided to become a Muslim. And so Sayyid Qutb was similar. And Sayyid Qutb, he became involved in Ikhwan and began to regularly give the Tuesday dars that they would have, began to publish a weekly newspaper, write articles and lecture from all around. And he also visited the Syrian branch of Ikhwan and visited other countries and helped spread the ideology. Sayyid Qutb then was imprisoned. And in 15th of January 1954, Ikhwan was dissolved by the government. Yeah, thousands of Ikhwanis were imprisoned along with their leaders, and Qutb, was also imprisoned. But after huge demonstrations, then they were all released. But Sayyid Qutb, did he say, I was in prison, I better stop my activities? He didn't. He realized even more the hatred that the people had against Islam. He realized the Aqidah. That there is Hizbullah and Hizb al-Shaitan. That's it. There's a party of Allah and there's a party of Shaitan. You can decide which one you want to be in. Okay? And he worked even harder and spread even more articles against the government. And he spread secret documents to expose to the people the true nature of Abdul Nasir and his regime. Then Nasir, he concocted a story that Ikhwan had planned to assassinate him. And as a result, he rounded up thousands and thousands of the Ikhwanis again in October. And this was really the first trial of Ikhwan. This was really the first trial of Ikhwan. And before the trial of Sayyid Qutb in this period, they tortured him and beat him severely. And to the extent what they would do is that before the trial, they made him sit on a chair, for hours and hours and hours and days, and they gave him no food or no drink. And they'd get some water in front of him, and they'd pour it in front of him. They do you want some water? And they poured the water in front of him. And then before the trial, they made him stand up for 6 hours, and he was already a frail man. He was an ill man. They made him stand up for 6 hours, and they'd whip him and they'd beat him. To the extent that the kind of the illness that overcame him, his lungs were bleeding. Okay, he had rheumatism, he had arthritis. Okay, and he had bronchitis. All the illnesses that you could think of, Sayyid Qutb had, and many of them were intensed by the torture. And when he got up in front of the court, they said to him, you look tired. And he goes, yes, I've been standing up 6 hours before the trial. And at that time, if any of the Ikhwanis spoke about the torture in prison, they would also be tortured. So Sayyid Qutb, to show to everybody that the Ikhwanis were being tortured, he immediately lifted up his back. And he showed the number of times that he was whipped. Okay, and this shocked the judges, and he was beaten even more and put in prison. And he was given 15 years of hard labor, of which he served 10 years, and he was released after 10 years because of his illness and his health. Now in prison, Sayyid Qutb was respected by everybody. Even the worst of criminals respected him. Even the prison guards, they respected him. And he would affect their minds. And he would, when he'd get food from his family, he'd give it and distribute it to the rest of the prisoners. Then afterwards, after he came out of prison, Ikhwan, like I said, was it was dissolved. And then a man called Abdul Fattah Ismail, he tried to rejuvenate the Jama'ah. And then he spoke to Sayyid Qutb about this. And then Sayyid Qutb, while he was in prison, while he was in prison, from 1955 to 1962, 7 years, he planned about, should this organization, should we reorganize this Jama'ah? And then he realized that he has to do something because secularism is taking over the society, and then they reorganized the Jama'ah. And Sayyid Qutb, he was leading the Jama'ah while he was in prison. But this time he had new ideas and new plans. The idea was this. He said that he saw that Islamic groups were concentrating too much on a local political level, but the whole of society was in need of reform from the roots. The whole of society was far from understanding the Aqidah. And rather than overthrowing the government, they had to start from the base and let the Islamic society oust the tyrants. In the meantime, it was necessary to train a group of brothers who were solid in their Aqidah and manners and could protect the Jama'ah from oppression. Okay, because he saw what happened to Abdul Nasir. He took over the government, he took over the regime, and he was corrupt. He said, we have to begin from the base, but so that the corrupt people cannot stop our activities, we must have a group of trained brothers that are ready to stop any aggression. And these trained people, what would they do? They would retaliate. If there was any aggression, they would immediately retaliate by killing the Prime Minister, the President, and the Director of Intelligence and the police. And so Qutb, he began to lead the Ikhwan from prison based on this model. This underground movement of Sayyid Qutb, it was discovered. Okay? It was discovered, quite, accidentally. And suffice it to say that there were infiltrators all around, and the names of the Ikhwan and those who were involved in the Ikhwan, they were given to the people, to Abdul Nasir. And he realized this last issue that I said, the fact that they will aggress and they will fight against anyone who tries to go against them. And in fact, Ikhwan, this was meant to be the last stage. You know, to fight aggression was meant to be the last stage after the society has built up. But what happened is that Ikhwan, they realized that Ikhwan, the secret organization, was going to be found out very soon, and they're going to be hit very soon, and therefore they tried to quickly rush in plans to form this group of people that would be ready to fight any aggression. And there was even a plan that, you know, weapons come from Saudi Arabia and all these things, but this plan, Sayyid Qutb, he rejected after they realized that it was a plan from the secret service to try and accuse Ikhwan and to expose them. Then in 1965, Abdul Nasir, he announced while he was in Moscow, this shows his links with communism, that Ikhwan was a secret organization and they planned to overthrow him. They planned to overthrow him. And then again, many of the Ikhwan, they were put in prison in 1965. This was their second trial, the second trial of Ikhwan. And many of them were tortured in prison. Now, when Sayyid Qutb was asked in an investigation about this new organization and the secret plans and this plan to fight against aggression, in his interview, Sayyid Qutb, he confessed to every single thing. And he admitted everything, and he said about the whole organization. He wanted to take all the blame on his shoulders. That he was leading this new secret underground organization, and he was ready to take all the blame for every single thing. And then also, you know, in front of his interrogators, you know, he admitted to every single act and every single deed, and he took the blame for everything. Now, before being taken to the court for trial, and this was his second imprisonment now. He was released after 10 years, and then again immediately afterwards he was in prison. The second trial of Sayyid Qutb, he was put in prison before the trial, and it was said that before being taken to the court, like I said, his nephew Rif'at was killed directly in front of him. He was beaten to death in front of Sayyid Qutb.